I turned 32 the Tuesday my life split into before and after, but the crack started forming the night before, while I was asleep. I've had rough nights. Anyone who spent 6 years as a trauma nurse in the ER of a Level I hospital has seen enough to fill a lifetime of bad dreams. But this one wasn't like the usual recycled chaos my brain served up at 2 a.m. This was sharp, focused, like someone had turned down all the background noise in my head and aimed a spotlight at one single frame. My mother was standing in my kitchen. Not the kitchen in the house I grew up in. My kitchen, the one in the apartment I moved into after the divorce. She was leaning against the counter with her arms crossed, wearing that pale blue cardigan she wore every Sunday morning to water her garden. She'd been gone for 3 years. Ovarian cancer. Fast and brutal. But there she was, looking at me the way she used to when I came home past curfew. Not angry, just deeply certain that something was wrong. She didn't hug me. She didn't say she missed me. She looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Don't drink the wine your brother sent you." That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Just that sentence delivered with the kind of calm authority my mother reserved for moments when she wasn't interested in debate. Then she was gone, like someone had pulled the plug on a projection screen. I woke up gasping, both hands gripping the edge of the mattress like I thought the bed was going to roll. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The bedroom was dark. The clock on the nightstand read 2:47 a.m. I sat there for a long time, breathing through my nose, waiting for the adrenaline to stop buzzing behind my ribs. I told myself it was nothing. A dream. Some leftover emotional residue from missing her, from the stress of pulling double shifts, from the fact that I hadn't slept more than 5 hours in a row for weeks. But the thing about working in emergency medicine is you learn to tell the difference between noise and signal. Noise is chaotic. Signal is specific. And my mother's voice in that dream was as specific as a surgeon's order. I got out of bed, walked to the bathroom, and splashed water on my face. I stared at myself in the mirror until my pulse came down. Then I walked into the kitchen and stopped. There, on the counter next to the fruit bowl, sat the bottle of wine my brother had dropped off the evening before, a red blend from some vineyard I'd never heard of. He'd shown up unannounced around 7, holding the bottle in one hand and a card in the other. He told me it was a congratulations gift. I'd just been promoted to charge nurse on the night shift, and he said it called for something special. I'd thanked him and set it down without thinking much about it. My brother wasn't the gift-giving type. Growing up, he forgot birthdays more often than he remembered them. But people change, I figured. Maybe he was trying. He'd been going through a rough stretch. Lost his contracting business 8 months ago. His wife left shortly after, and the house went on the market. I'd been helping him with money when I could. A few hundred here, a utility bill there. He never asked directly, just hinted until I offered. I didn't mind. He was my brother. But standing in the kitchen at 3 in the morning, with my mother's voice still bouncing off the walls of my skull, that bottle didn't look like a gift anymore. It looked like a question. I didn't touch it. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table with the lights off. The streetlight outside cast a thin yellow stripe across the counter, cutting right through the label on the bottle. I watched it like I expected it to move. My brain was doing that thing it does in the trauma bay when a patient comes in, looking stable, but something about their vitals doesn't match. You don't panic, you just watch closer. I finished the water and went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. I lay there with my eyes open, listening to the building settle, running through every interaction I'd had with my brother in the last month. The texts that felt shorter than usual. The way he laughed too hard at things that weren't funny. The time he came over to borrow my car and stood in the living room for 10 minutes, staring at nothing before I asked if he was okay. He said he was fine. I didn't believe him, but I let it go because that's what we did. We let things go. By the time the sun came up, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to drink the wine. I wasn't going to throw it away either. I was going to look at it more carefully, because the part of me that had spent years reading bodies, reading vitals, reading the space between what people said and what they meant, was telling me something was off, and that part of me had never been wrong when it mattered. I got dressed for my shift, grabbed my bag, and walked past the counter. The bottle sat there, label forward, perfectly still. I paused and picked it up. The weight felt right. The seal looked intact. But when I tilted it against the light coming through the window, something caught my eye. Near the bottom of the bottle, just above the punt, There was a faint discoloration in the liquid, not sediment. Sediment in red wine settles evenly. This was different. A slight cloudiness concentrated on one side, like something had been introduced and hadn't fully dissolved. My throat tightened. Not from fear, but from recognition. The same feeling I got in the ER when labs came back and confirmed the thing you hoped wasn't true. I set the bottle down carefully and pulled out my phone. I didn't call my brother. I called Dana. She was the only person in my life who had both a chemistry degree and the ability to keep her mouth shut. We'd been friends since nursing school. She dropped out after the first year to finish her PhD in pharmacology and ended up working at the state forensics lab downtown. We still met for breakfast once a month when our schedules aligned. She picked up on the third ring, already sounding like she'd been awake for hours. If this is about Saturday brunch, I already told you I can't do eggs. My stomach is staging a rebellion. It's not about brunch, I said. The shift in my tone landed immediately. What happened? I need you to test something for me. A bottle of wine. Silence. Then, carefully, test it for what? I don't know yet. That's the problem. She didn't ask me if I was being paranoid. She didn't tell me to calm down. She just said, bring it. Use gloves. Don't open the seal. I'll be at the lab by 8. I grabbed a pair of nitrile gloves from the box I kept under the bathroom sink. Habit from years of hospital work, slipped them on, and placed the bottle in a paper bag. I sealed it, set it on the passenger seat of my car, and drove downtown. The lab was a squat concrete building tucked behind the county courthouse. Dana met me at the side entrance wearing her white coat and a look that said she'd already cleared space on her bench. She didn't greet me with small talk. She took the bag, looked inside, then looked at me. How long have you had this? Since last night. My brother brought it over. Her expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. She turned and walked into the lab without another word. I followed. The room smelled like rubbing alcohol and cold metal. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. She set the bag on a steel tray and pulled on a second pair of gloves over her first. Sit over there. Don't touch anything. I sat on the stool by the wall and watched her work. She opened the seal under a ventilated hood, poured a small sample into a glass vial, and ran it through a preliminary screen. The machine clicked and whirred. I stared at the ceiling, counting tiles, until she spoke. Nora. Her voice was flat. The same flat I used when I had to tell a family their person didn't make it. I looked at her. This wine has been adulterated. The word landed in my chest like a stone. With what? It's going to take a full panel to confirm the exact compound, but based on the initial read, it's consistent with a hepatotoxin, something that damages the liver gradually. Taken orally over a period of days or weeks, it mimics the progression of acute liver failure. She paused. The kind of thing that looks natural on an autopsy if nobody's looking for it. I didn't move. My hands sat flat on my thighs, steady. My breathing stayed even. But inside, somewhere behind my sternum, something cracked. Nora, she said again, quieter this time, this isn't accidental contamination. Someone put this in the bottle deliberately. I swallowed once. How sure are you? Sure enough that you need to call the police. I pressed my knuckles against my forehead and closed my eyes. The dream replayed. My mother's face, the cardigan, the kitchen light, the calm, unshakable certainty in her voice. Don't drink the wine your brother sent you. I opened my eyes. Do you know a detective? She pulled a card from the corkboard behind her desk. Marcus Webb, Homicide Division. I've worked with him on 3 cases. He doesn't waste time and he doesn't assume anything. I took the card. The paper felt heavier than it should have. I dialed the number from the hallway outside the lab. A man answered after one ring. Deep voice. No filler words. Webb. My name is Nora Whitfield. I was referred by Dana Ortega at the State Forensics Lab. I have a situation. Go ahead. Someone tampered with a bottle of wine that was given to me as a gift. The preliminary test shows a hepatotoxin. A pause. Then, who gave you the bottle? My brother. Another pause. Longer this time. Where are you right now? At the lab. Stay there. I'm 15 minutes out. He arrived in 12. Tall, mid-40s, silver threading through dark hair, wearing a plain gray suit that looked like it had been through 100 interrogation rooms without complaint. He walked into the lab, shook Dana's hand without smiling, and turned to me. Tell me everything. Start from when you received the bottle. I told him. The visit, the card, the dream, the discoloration, the test. I kept it clean. Facts only. He wrote fast, filling 2 pages in a small leather notebook. When I finished, he clicked the pen closed and looked at me. Your brother. What's his financial situation? Bad. Lost his business. Then his marriage. He's behind on everything. Does he owe anyone? I've been helping him with money. That's not what I asked. I hesitated. He mentioned once, a few weeks ago, that he'd borrowed from someone outside the bank. He said it was temporary. I told him to be careful. He changed the subject. Webb nodded. Do you have life insurance? The question felt like a cold hand on my neck. Yes. Through the hospital. Standard coverage for full-time employees. Beneficiary? My brother. He's my only immediate family. He didn't react visibly, but the pen tapped once against the edge of the notebook. I need the bottle, the test results, and access to your apartment. You'll have all of it, and your brother's address. I'll get it for you. He stood. One more thing, don't contact him. Don't change your routine. If he reaches out, respond normally. Don't mention the wine, the test, or this conversation. I understand. Good. He looked at Dana. I'll need the full toxicology report expedited. She nodded. I'll have it by tonight. Webb left without small talk. I appreciated that about him. I drove home with the windows down, letting the cold air hit my face. My hands stayed steady on the wheel, but my mind was running calculations I didn't want to finish. I parked in front of my apartment building and sat in the car for a full minute before going inside. The kitchen looked exactly as I'd left it. The fruit bowl, the dish towel draped over the oven handle, the empty space on the counter where the bottle had been. That space felt louder now. I made coffee because my hands needed something to do. While the machine ran, I opened my laptop and pulled up the insurance policy. Standard hospital plan. $200,000. Beneficiary. Ryan Whitfield, brother. I stared at the number until the screen blurred. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother. Hey, did you try the wine yet? Hope it's good. You deserve it. My stomach turned. I typed back. Haven't opened it yet. Saving it for the weekend. 3 dots appeared. Then, don't wait too long. It's the kind that's better fresh. I set the phone down and pressed my palms flat against the counter. The coffee machine beeped. I poured a cup and didn't drink it. I stood in the kitchen watching the steam curl up and disappear, thinking about all the small moments I'd dismissed over the last few months. The way my brother asked about my schedule more often than usual. The way he showed up without calling first. The way he looked at me sometimes like he was trying to memorize something he was about to lose. Webb called at 6 that evening. The full panel confirmed it. Hepatotoxic compound. Industrial grade. Not commercially available. Someone with access to chemical supply chains sourced this. My brother doesn't have access to anything like that. Maybe not directly. But someone he's connected to does. I need to ask, has he introduced you to anyone recently? New friends? Business contacts? I thought about it. Then it clicked. His ex-wife's brother. Carl. He works for a chemical distributor outside the city. My brother mentioned him once or twice. Said they'd been hanging out. Carl have a last name? Medina. Carl Medina. That's enough for now. I've got a unit watching your building tonight. Keep your doors locked. Don't open for anyone you're not expecting. I wasn't planning to. And Nora, if your brother shows up, let him in. Act normal. We need to understand what he knows. Understood. The night passed slowly. I tried to sleep, managed about 2 hours of something that resembled rest, and gave up around 4. I sat in the living room with every light off, listening to the building breathe. The radiator clicked. A car passed below the window. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's dog whined once and went quiet. My phone lit up at 6:15 a.m. A text from my brother. Hey, wanna grab breakfast? I'm in the neighborhood. He was never in my neighborhood at 6 in the morning. He lived 40 minutes away and hadn't been a morning person since high school. I typed back, sure, come over. I'll make eggs. 20 minutes later, the buzzer rang. I let him up. He walked in with a paper bag from a bakery I didn't recognize, and a smile that sat on his face like it had been placed there by someone who'd read about smiling but never quite practiced it. Morning, he said, setting the bag on the counter. His eyes moved across the kitchen before landing on the empty space where the bottle had been. The muscles around his jaw tightened for half a second. You moved the wine? He asked, too casually. Put it in the pantry. Didn't want it sitting in the sun. He nodded. His shoulders loosened a fraction. Good. Yeah. Heat's bad for it. I cracked eggs into a bowl, keeping my back to him. You're up early. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd surprise you. Since when do you surprise anyone before noon? He laughed, but it came out thin. I'm turning over a new leaf. I whisked the eggs and poured them into the pan. The sizzle filled the silence. He stood by the counter, hands in his jacket pockets, rocking slightly on his heels. He looked tired. Not the kind of tired from one bad night, but the kind that comes from weeks of carrying something too heavy. How's the job? He asked. Busy. Charge nurse means more paperwork. You like it? I like taking care of people. Something in his expression shifted. A flicker I almost missed. He looked down at his shoes. You always were the one who took care of everyone. I didn't answer. I plated the eggs, set one in front of him, and sat across the table. He picked up his fork but didn't eat. He pushed a piece of egg from one side of the plate to the other. Ryan, I said, what's going on? He looked up. His eyes were red around the edges. What do you mean? You show up at dawn with bakery pastries. You brought me a bottle of wine 3 days ago. You've texted me more this week than you have in the last 3 months combined. I held his gaze. Something's going on. He set the fork down and rubbed the back of his neck. I just feel bad, that's all. You've been helping me and I haven't been a great brother. I wanted to make it right. By buying wine you can't afford? The flinch was small but unmistakable. It wasn't expensive. You told me it was special. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His hand went to his pocket and I heard the faint click of his phone screen turning on, then off. A nervous check. The same kind of restless movement I'd seen in patients who were lying about their symptoms. You seem stressed, I said. I'm fine. You're not eating. I'm not hungry. Then why come for breakfast? He stared at me. Something in his face crumbled, just at the edges, just enough for me to see the structure underneath the performance starting to give way. But he pulled it back together, pasted the smile on again. Can't a guy visit his sister? Of course. But usually that guy doesn't look like he hasn't slept in a week. He pushed back from the table. I should go. I've got a thing. What kind of thing? Just stuff. I'll call you later. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. At the threshold, he turned around. Hey, try the wine tonight. Seriously, don't let it sit. The urgency in his voice hit differently now. Not insistence, desperation. I will, I said. He left. The door clicked shut and the apartment settled back into quiet. I stood at the table for a long time, looking at the plate of eggs he hadn't touched. My phone rang. Webb. My unit confirmed your brother just left. He was on the phone before he even got to his car. We're running the number now. He paused. Something else. We pulled records on Carl Medina. He was fired from the chemical company 4 months ago for inventory discrepancies. Specifically, mishandling of restricted compounds. My chest tightened. So he had access. Lost his job over it, and is apparently still in contact with your brother. We're bringing him in today. What about my brother? Not yet. I want to see what Medina gives us first, but I need you to do something tonight. What? If your brother contacts you again about the wine, tell him you're opening it tonight. Invite him over. You want me to set a trap? I want you to create a situation where he has to make a choice. What he does next tells us everything. I agreed. Then I hung up and sat on the couch in the dark for 30 minutes, not thinking, not planning, just letting the weight of it settle into something I could carry. That evening, I texted my brother. Opening the wine tonight. Wanna come over? I'll order pizza. His reply came in 4 minutes. Yeah, what time? 7. I'll be there. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen. I opened the pantry and looked at the shelf where I'd told him the bottle was. I hadn't actually put it there. It was still at the lab, being cataloged as evidence, but I'd placed a different bottle on the shelf, same shape, similar label, close enough that he wouldn't notice unless he picked it up and studied it. At 6:45, Webb called. We're in position. 2 officers in the hallway, 1 in the apartment across from yours. I'm in a van downstairs. Your phone will be live monitored. Okay. Nora, whatever he says tonight, don't react emotionally. Let him talk. Let him reveal. That's what I do for a living. At 7 sharp, the buzzer rang. I let him up. He walked in slower than usual. His jacket hung loose and his hands stayed in his pockets. He scanned the apartment like he was checking to make sure nothing had changed since this morning. His eyes stopped on the pantry door, which I'd left slightly open. He could see the bottle on the shelf. "You haven't opened it yet," he said. "Waiting for you." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's do it then." I walked to the pantry, pulled out the substitute bottle, and set it on the counter. He watched every movement. When I reached for the corkscrew, his hand shot out and touched my wrist. Light. Fast. Then pulled away. "Let me," he said. "You always struggle with those things. I open wine all the time. Just let me." There was something in his voice I hadn't heard before. Not insistence. Control. Like he needed to be the one to handle it. I stepped aside and handed him the corkscrew. He opened the bottle, poured 2 glasses, set one in front of me. I looked at the glass. The wine was darker than the original, but he didn't seem to notice. He lifted his glass. "To your promotion." I didn't pick up mine. His smile wavered. "Nora, come on." "Ryan," I said. "What's in the wine?" The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. His face didn't move for 3 full seconds. Then, slowly, the facade started to slide. First the eyes, then the mouth, then the shoulders. Everything dropped. "What are you talking about?" he whispered. "You know what I'm talking about." He set his glass down. His hand was shaking. "I don't. I really don't." "Then drink yours." He looked at his glass. He didn't pick it up. "That's what I thought," I said. His breathing changed. Faster, shallower, his chest moving in short bursts like a patient going into the early stages of panic. He backed away from the counter and pressed his hands against his face. "I can't do this," he said. His voice muffled. "Do what?" He dropped his hands. His eyes were wet. "They told me it would be simple. They said you'd drink it over a few days and it would look like your liver gave out. They said no one would question it. They said..." "Who said?" He shook his head. "Ryan, who told you to do this?" He swallowed hard. "Carl. And the people Carl works with." "What people?" "I owe them money. A lot of money. More than I told you. More than I told anyone." He started pacing, short jerky steps between the counter and the wall. "When the business went under, I took a loan, not from a bank. From people Carl knew. They said the interest was manageable. It wasn't. It doubled. Then it doubled again. Then they started showing up at my apartment. And they told you to poison me." The word hit him like a physical blow. He stopped pacing. "They didn't use that word." "What word did they use?" "They said I could clear the debt if I helped them with one thing." "One thing?" His voice cracked. "They knew about your insurance. They knew you listed me as beneficiary. They said if something happened to you, the payout would cover everything. And you agreed." "No." He shook his head violently. "I didn't agree. I told them no. I told them absolutely not. But they kept calling. They showed up at my door at 2 in the morning. They followed me to the grocery store. They sent photos of your apartment building with timestamps. I felt the muscles in my jaw tighten. They were watching me. They were watching both of us. And when I kept saying no, they stopped asking and started telling. Carl brought the compound. He put it in the wine himself. He handed me the bottle and said if I didn't deliver it, they'd come for both of us. So you brought it to me." He covered his face again. "I thought maybe you wouldn't drink it. I thought maybe I could come back and take it before you opened it. I thought maybe..." "You thought maybe someone else would fix the problem you carried to my front door." He let out a sound that was half sob, half exhale. "I didn't want you to get hurt." "Then you should have told me." "I was afraid." "You should have been afraid enough to say no." He sank into the chair, elbows on his knees, hands locked behind his head. I know what I did. I know what it means. I just didn't know how to stop it." "You could have called the police." "They said they'd know. They said if I talked to anyone, they'd skip the plan and come directly. They said a lot of things. And you believed all of them." He looked up. Tears ran down his face, but his expression wasn't seeking pity. It was the look of someone who had just heard the sound of the last door closing behind them. "Is it too late?" he asked. I didn't answer. Because the answer wasn't mine to give. The front door opened. Webb stepped inside, calm, badge visible, 2 officers behind him. My brother shot to his feet, chair skidding backward. No. "Ryan Whitfield," Webb said. "We need to talk." My brother looked at me. The betrayal on his face was almost unbearable, almost, except that I knew what real betrayal looked like now, and it wasn't this. "You called them?" he said. I didn't have to. They've been listening. His face collapsed. He didn't resist when the officers approached. He just stood there, arms limp at his sides, tears falling silently. Webb turned to me. Carl Medina was picked up 2 hours ago. He's already cooperating. Named 2 additional associates in the lending operation. I nodded. Your brother will be taken in for questioning. Depending on what he provides, the charges will be determined by the DA. I understand. My brother was led toward the door. Just before they reached it, he turned his head. Nora, I'm sorry. I really am. I looked at him. My brother. The kid who used to share his Halloween candy with me. The teenager who drove 40 miles to pick me up when my car broke down sophomore year. The man who stood in my kitchen with a bottle meant to kill me. I believe you're sorry, I said, but that doesn't undo what you carried through my door. The officers guided him out. The door closed. Webb stayed behind for a moment. You handled that well, he said. I've had practice staying steady when things fall apart. He handed me a card. Victim's advocate. Call them when you're ready. I will. He left. The apartment fell quiet. Not the suspicious quiet from the night before. Not the heavy quiet of the morning. Something different. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm passes and you're still standing. I walked to the counter and poured both glasses of wine down the sink. I rinsed the glasses twice. Then I stood at the window and looked out at the street below. The lights were coming on in the buildings across the road. A woman walked her dog past the bus stop. A delivery truck idled at the corner. My phone buzzed. Dana, it's over? It's over. You okay? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I think I am. Good. Because I'm bringing breakfast tomorrow and you're not allowed to say no. I smiled. The first real one in days. After the call ended, I stayed at the window. The city moved on like nothing had happened, because for the city, nothing had. But in this apartment, in this kitchen, everything was different now. I was different. Not broken, not bitter, just clear. The fog of blind trust had lifted, and what was left was something I could work with. I thought about my mother. The dream. Her voice. The cardigan. Whether it was real or just my subconscious pulling together threads I hadn't let myself see while awake, it didn't matter. What mattered was I listened. I turned off the kitchen light and walked to the bedroom. My scrubs were hanging on the closet door, ready for tomorrow's shift. 12 hours in the ER, 12 hours of making decisions that mattered, of staying calm when everything around me was falling apart. I was good at that. I'd always been good at that. I lay down, pulled the blanket up, and closed my eyes. For the first time in a week, sleep came without a fight, and no one stood in my kitchen waiting to warn me, because there was nothing left to warn me about.